Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 665. Spirit Body Threads. Under the strong sunlight, the sea reflected a golden shade. Apart from that, deep in Klein's eyes were countless illusory black lines. They extended from the nearby mermaids, from his body, and from the different parts of the neighboring waters. They were packed densely in thin and numerous threads, corresponding to different spots. Some extended into the infinite distance, to the ends of the void. This strange, beautiful scene wasn't an unfamiliar sight to Klein. In the few times he used the all-black eye's powers and his usage of it to create the fake world, he had been able to see similar scenes. This was the source of a marionettist's beyonder powers. From the knowledge he obtained from the potion, these illusory thin black threads were known as spirit body threads. By controlling them, one could directly influence the target's soul body, astral projection, body of heart and mind, and ether body. Then, with the ether body as a bridge, one could control the target's body. Therefore, all the beyonder powers of a marionettist was built on the spirit body threads. Firstly, it could find a hidden target using the spirit body threads that existed in every creature. It was the best measure against a demonist's invisibility and a shadow ascetic's hiding in the shadows. Of course, Klein wasn't aware if there were means to hide one's spirit body threads. Secondly, it was to control a target like a puppet. It would make the target's thoughts and body stiffen. This was a type of forceful control and was almost indefensible. The only way of escaping this control was to rely on the potency of one's spirit body. It was almost no trouble for a Sequence 5 marionettist to control anyone who wasn't a demigod. Thirdly, through the passage of time, the control would deepen. A marionettist could completely turn the target into their marionette. Up to a certain distance, they could hide behind the scenes and control the marionette to do battle. While doing so, the marionette could use all of its original beyonder powers. This is truly magical, terrifying, strange, and indescribable. It's the perfect thing for someone working behind the scenes. It's no wonder Rossigo claimed that the control of spirit body threads is one of the most difficult abilities to deal with for anyone that isn't a high sequence beyonder. But it requires time. Control cannot be instantly achieved. It requires a process that deepens with each step until it's ultimately achieved. To obtain initial control, the present me needs 20 seconds. But with the digestion of the potion, the time needed will clearly decrease. Once my marionettist potion completely digests, I might be able to do it within 5 seconds. Yes, before the effects show, the target wouldn't even notice it. Perhaps those with prophetic abilities might be able to detect it. Once initial control of the target has been achieved, they will immediately be slow to think. Their actions will be impeded and their bodies stiffened. Then, bit by bit, they will develop into a puppet, a marionette. If a marionettist has a partner, this process will make it easy to finish off a target that has been forcibly controlled. Yes, if the enemy's spirit body isn't strong enough, a marionettist will have the strength remaining to even draw a gun, or use a mystical item to act in concert with himself. If the controlling process isn't disrupted by an external force, the target will become my marionette after 5 minutes. In a sense, the marionette is truly dead and the process is completely irreversible. Once the potion is completely digested, the time it takes to convert someone into a marionette will definitely be greatly shortened. The maximum number of marionettes I can control at present is 1. I can't be sure how many I can control in the future, but it will definitely increase. The limit seems to max out at 3. This will not only need time, but there's also a distance restriction. I can only see spirit body threads within 100 meters. And to control them, I need to be 5 meters from the target. When controlling marionettes, I cannot be more than 100 meters from it. I'm sure it will increase in the future. Apart from keeping its beyonder powers, a marionette can also normally use mystical items and sealed artifacts. Furthermore, it expends its own spirituality and not mine. Of course, my controlling of the marionette will expend spirituality itself. This ability is very suited for me. In extremely dangerous situations, with me having no choice but to investigate, I can let the marionette do it for me. Although it will be heartbreaking to lose it, it's better than having myself die. Heh heh, back when Marionettist Rosago came to deal with me, he must have been engaged in another operation. This resulted in him losing his marionette. Yes, he must have not fully digested the marionettist potion. That's why he wasn't able to achieve initial control over me while waiting for me to open the door. He had to enter in order to converse with me. In short, this lives up to being a Sequence 5 Beyonder power. Furthermore, the Beyonder powers before this have also been enhanced by 50%, or even more. I'm really looking forward to knowing what kind of qualitative changes I'll experience when I reach Sequence 4 when possessing so many strange powers. Sigh, I don't even know what its name is. Klein ended the inspection of his body and reflected wistfully. He then used the experience of setting an activation and deactivation method for his spirit vision to give himself a restriction of seeing spirit body threads, so as to not see things he shouldn't see. Activating by tapping my left thumb twice on the first segment of my index finger. Repeating the action deactivates it. Same for the right hand. He reined in his thoughts and looked ahead, and he saw that the remaining mermaids had turned around and were looking at him with watery blue eyes. At the thought that he would have lost control and become a sealed artifact akin to 2049 without their singing or this simple ritual, Klein gave them a friendly smile. Affected by the charm, the mermaids also moved their lips and showed a somewhat embarrassed smile. As their light purple or deep red lips parted, one by one, Klein saw their teeth, razor-sharp like wolf fangs. They were white and shiny, and dripping from them was a sticky liquid. Klein was taken aback. He discovered that this was even more unacceptable for him than a real monster. He had originally mentally prepared himself and treated mermaids as creatures that swam in the sea. Therefore, no matter how crazy and terrifying they looked, he believed that he could tolerate it. However, the situation was somewhat beyond his expectations. Mermaids were clearly beautiful and alluring females on the surface. Their tails had a hetero sense of beauty, but their teeth were nasty and disgusting. This was a stark contrast that Klein couldn't take. He nearly moved his eyes away. Waving his hand, he quickly took out a charm from the sea god domain and created another gale of wind to push his dinghy back to the future. Along the way, Klein couldn't help but recollect the feelings he just had. So the mermaid's singing is meant for neutralizing and balancing. Otherwise, most faceless are unable to resist the corrosion of their own spirit body threads by the marionettist potion. They would directly lose control. Heh. Lucky ones like Calvetua aren't included. Perhaps it's because of the lack of the ritual's help that it's relatively weaker. In theory, as long as there's a voice or beyonder power with similar effects, they can be used to replace a mermaid's singing, but people who haven't personally experienced it themselves wouldn't be able to tell the minute differences. Therefore, high-sequence beyonders who aren't from the seer pathway will find it difficult to provide any effective suggestions. Amidst his thoughts, the dinghy returned to the future. With a rope, Klein easily returned to the deck. Anderson Hood stood by the shipboard and chuckled. So your search of mermaids was a requirement of a ritual, and not because you wished to obtain the corresponding ingredients. That's obvious, Klein succinctly replied. Anderson shrugged and said, No, it's not. A normal person will guess that mermaids are the ingredients you need, as this doesn't match the rituals needed by a Sequence 4. But who knew that adventurer Gehrman Sparrow, who was at the level of a pirate admiral, was only a Sequence 6? What do you mean? Only? Klein resisted the urge of controlling Anderson's spirit body threads. Ignoring the strongest hunter who automatically had a provocative halo, he entered the cabin and returned to his room. Just as he approached the captain's cabin, he heard a creak as the door before him opened. Catlett didn't wear her heavy glasses. She looked at Gehrman Sparrow as the dark purple hue in her eyes swirled. Congratulations on your advancement. Previously in the dream, did I say something? You know what you said, Klein replied with a deadpan expression. Catlett fell silent for 2 seconds before saying, You questioned me about my relationship with Queen Mystic? As she spoke, she couldn't help but look around. She guessed that Queen Mystic might be on the future because of my rather sudden question? I really have to be careful when conversing with a smart person. Klein nodded, walked past her, and returned to his room, leaving the corridor in silence. Only when he opened the door and took a step inside did he hear Katla's voice sound out from the captain's cabin. It reverberated through the entire ship. Set sail for the return voyage. Inside the room, Klein waited a few minutes before re-entering the bathroom. He set up the ritual again, and through creeping hunger, which was turning more irascible due to the lack of food above the gray fog. After doing this, he wasn't in a rush to leave. He summoned the distorted iron-black tinder and made it land before him. After studying it for a moment, Klein placed tinder inside the iron cigar case and threw it into the junk pile. Although this expensive glove was now unusable, Klein was certain that trash could still be used. Immediately following that, he slowly took off the already silent creeping hunger, and he similarly placed it into the junk pile. Phew! Klein remained silent for 2 seconds before leaving the palace that looked like a giant's residence, and then he ventured deep into the mysterious space above the gray fog. From his previous exploration, he discovered a bright staircase that seemed to lead to heaven. He suspected that the number of steps had something to do with his sequence. Therefore, he immediately came here to confirm it after he advanced. After walking for a while, Klein finally saw the holy staircase made out of pure light. Compared to before, there was another step, making it a total of 5 steps. Indeed. Klein sighed, unsurprised. Then, he climbed up the staircase that appeared to be prepared for giants, and arrived at the top. At that moment, he wasn't that far from the gray fog which was hardened in midair. He seemed to just need one more step to reach that height. Klein subconsciously looked up and seemed to see something.